The telescope's eyepiece showed nothing but endless stars when Finn Blackwood first noticed the anomaly. It was past midnight at his remote mountain observatory. He'd been tracking a particularly interesting nebula formation when something streaked across his field of vision, something that definitely wasn't on any star chart. "What the hell?" Finn muttered, adjusting the telescope's focus. The object was moving too slowly to be a meteor, too fast to be a satellite. And it was glowing with an ethereal blue-silver light that seemed almost alive. Finn had been alone at the White Peak Observatory for 3 months now, working on his graduate thesis about stellar formation patterns. The isolation usually didn't bother him. He preferred the company of stars to people most days. But tonight, something felt different. The mountain air carried an electric charge that made his skin tingle, and even the usual night sounds of the forest had gone silent. The mysterious object suddenly changed direction, defying every law of physics Finn knew. It spiraled downward in a controlled descent, its light pulsing like a cosmic heartbeat. Through his telescope, he caught glimpses of what looked like organic curves wings, perhaps or flowing appendages that seemed to dance with the stellar wind. Then it crashed. The impact shook the entire mountain, rattling Finn's equipment, and sending his coffee mug tumbling to the floor. Outside his cabin, the forest erupted in a brief, brilliant flash that turned night into day for several seconds. When his vision cleared, he could see a crater glowing softly in the meadow below, perhaps half a mile from his observatory. Finn's scientific curiosity warred with his common sense. Whatever had just crashed was clearly not a normal meteorite, and his first instinct was to call the authorities. But his phone showed no signal. It never did this far up the mountain end. The nearest town was 40 miles down a treacherous mountain road. Just a quick look, he told himself, grabbing his emergency flashlight and first aid kit. Document what I can, then figure out how to report it. The trek down to the crash site took longer than expected. The forest seemed different. In the wake of whatever had fallen, the trees leaned away from the crater as if in reverence or fear, and bioluminescent fungi that he'd never noticed before cast eerie patterns of light along the trail. When Finn finally reached the crater's edge, his breath caught in his throat. The impact site was perfectly circular, its edges fused into smooth glass by incredible heat. But at the center, curled in a graceful spiral, lay something that made his scientific worldview crumble. It was definitely alive. The creature was roughly human-sized, but clearly not human, with an elegant form that seemed to shift between solid and ethereal. Its skin had an opalescent quality, shimmering between silver and deep blue like captured starlight. What Finn had mistaken for wings were actually gossamer appendages that seemed to be made of condensed energy, flickering weakly as the being breathed in shallow gasps. "Oh my God," Finn whispered, sliding down into the crater without thinking about the potential danger. Up close, he could see that the creature was injured. Silvery fluid blood, perhaps seeped from several wounds along its side, and its breathing was labored. The being's eyes suddenly opened, and Finn found himself staring into depths that looked like swirling galaxies. They were beautiful and alien and filled with pain, but also with something that looked almost like relief when they focused on him. The creature tried to speak, its voice producing sounds that were musical but completely unintelligible. The language, if it was a language, seemed to incorporate tones that resonated in Finn's chest, making his bones hum with sympathetic vibrations. "Hey, it's okay," Finn said softly, the way he might speak to an injured animal. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're hurt, aren't you?" To his amazement, the being seemed to understand his tone, if not his words. It struggled to sit up, wincing as movement aggravated its injuries. One slender hand, definitely hand-like, though with an extra finger and skin that seemed to glow from within, pointed to its wounds and then to Finn. "You want me to help?" Finn asked, already opening his first aid kit even though he had no idea if human medical supplies would be useful for an alien being. The creature noted a remarkably human gesture that somehow looked natural coming from this otherworldly being. It pointed to itself and made a sound that might have been a name, something like Nova, but with harmonics that Finn's throat couldn't reproduce. "Nova?" Finn repeated, and the being's galaxy eyes brightened with what looked like pleased surprise. as Finn carefully cleaned and bandaged the creature's wounds with supplies that seemed laughably inadequate. He found himself talking to fill the silence. "I'm Finn. I study stars, I watch them through telescopes and try to understand how they form. Never thought I'd meet someone who might actually be from them." For that's how Finn had decided to think of her. Somehow certain the being was female listened intently to his voice. When he was finished with the makeshift medical care, she reached into what appeared to be a fold in her gossamer appendages and withdrew something that made Finn's eyes widen. It was a crystal pendant, perfectly clear but filled with swirling motes of light that moved like living stars. Nova pressed it against her throat, and suddenly her musical alien sounds transformed into words Finn could understand, though her voice retained its ethereal, almost singing quality. "Thank you, Star Watcher," she said, her English accented with harmonics that made every word sound like music. "I am Nova Stellaris of the astral plane. I have traveled far to reach this place. I fear I may have brought danger to your world." Finn sat back on his heels, his mind reeling. Less than an hour ago, his biggest concern had been calibrating his telescope for tomorrow night's observations. Now he was having a conversation with an injured alien who spoke of astral planes and danger. "Where are you from?" he asked, because it seemed like the most reasonable question under the circumstances. Nova's expression grew sad as she looked up at the star-filled sky. "From the spaces between your stars? From a realm where dragons dance with cosmic winds and cities float among captured auroras? But my home is dying, and I have fled those who would see it consumed entirely." As she spoke, Finn noticed that Nova's wounds were healing at a visible rate. The silvery bleeding had stopped, and the edges of the cuts were beginning to close. But whatever she was, her physiology was far more advanced than anything on Earth. "You're healing incredibly fast," he observed. "My people regenerate quickly when we feel safe," Nova explained. "Your kindness creates a harmony that accelerates the process." "I am grateful, Finn, who watches stars. In my realm, such selfless aid to a stranger is considered the highest virtue." The way she said his name, with those impossible harmonics, made something warm unfold in Finn's chest. He found himself wanting to hear her say it again. "You can't stay here," he said reluctantly. "You can't stay in this crater. It's too exposed, and if anyone else sees you—" Nova nodded gravely. "I understand. Your people would fear me, perhaps harm me. I have observed enough of your world through the cosmic winds to know that humans often react with violence to what they do not understand." "Not all of us," Finn said quickly. "But you're right that most would be afraid. My cabin isn't for it's isolated, and I live alone. You could rest there while you heal, and we could figure out what to do next." The look Nova gave him was filled with such gratitude and something else. Something that made Finn's heart race despite the impossibility of the situation. "You would shelter me even knowing I am not of your world?" she asked. "Especially because you're not of my world," Finn replied, surprising himself with his honesty. "I've spent my whole life looking up at the stars and wondering what was out there. Now one of those wonders has literally fallen into my life. How could I turn you away?" As Finn helped Nova to her feet and began leading her toward his cabin, he realized that his quiet, predictable life had just taken a turn toward the extraordinary. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. And looking at the beautiful, ethereal being walking beside him, her form shimmering with captured starlight, Finn found that he wouldn't have it any other way. Parameter invoke. The morning sun filtered through the cabin windows as Finn prepared another bowl of warm broth for his mysterious guest. 3 days had passed since he'd found Nova collapsed in the crater, and her recovery had been nothing short of miraculous. What had initially appeared to be fatal wounds were now fading scars, and her strength returned with each passing hour. "Your kindness runs deeper than mountain springs," Nova said, her voice now clear through the shimmering crystal pendant she wore. The translator had taken time to attune to human speech patterns, but now her words flowed like music. "In my realm, such selfless care is rare among strangers." Finn set the bowl beside her makeshift bed, studying her ethereal features. In daylight, Nova's beauty was breathtaking yet otherworldly. Her skin held a subtle, iridescent quality, shifting between pale silver and soft gold depending on the light. Her eyes were the color of deep space, filled with swirling galaxies that seemed to move when she was emotional. "You mentioned your realm before," Finn said carefully. "Where exactly do you come from?" Nova's expression darkened as she gestured. "Toward the window. Beyond your stars, in the space between spaces, lies the astral plane. My people, the Stellarist dragons, have guarded the cosmic balance for millennia. We are the shepherds of starlight, the weavers of celestial energy." Paused, her hands trembling slightly as memories surfaced. "But our realm is dying. Zarian Shadowclaw, a dragon lord consumed by hunger for power, has been draining the astral energy to fuel his dark magic. He seeks to merge our dimension with others, consuming them to feed his endless appetite." Finn felt a chill run down his spine. "And you're running from him?" "Not just running." Nova's voice grew fierce. "Fighting," Zarian demanded I become his mate, binding our bloodlines to legitimize his claim to the throne. My father, weakened by years of battling the realm's decay, agreed to the arrangement. But I knew that my union with Zarian would doom not just our world, but countless others. Over the following hours, Nova painted a picture of her world that was both magnificent and tragic. She described floating crystal cities that sang with harmonic frequencies, gardens where flowers bloomed with captured starlight, libraries containing the wisdom of ages written in books made of crystallized time itself. "We dragons are not the savage beasts of your legends," she explained. "In our true forms, we are beings of pure cosmic energy given shape. But we can also take physical forms to interact with material realms like yours. Our magic comes from our connection to the stellar winds and the songs of dying stars." Finn was fascinated by every detail, but he noticed something troubling in Nova's behavior. She seemed reluctant to discuss her escape or her plans for the future. Whenever he asked about contacting her people or finding a way home, she would change the subject or grow distant. "Nova," he said gently one evening as they watched the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. "What aren't you telling me? There's something you're afraid to share?" Her galaxy eyes filled with what looked like tears made of liquid starlight. "Among my people, there exists a phenomenon called the soul fire. It is said that when a dragon encounters their heart wind, their destined meta-burning sensation begins in their chest, growing stronger with proximity to that person." Finn's heart began to race as he sensed where this was leading. "Since awakening in your care," Nova continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "I have felt the soul fire burning brighter each day. By our laws and traditions, this means you are my heart, when Finn, my soulmate across the vastness of space and time." The weight of her words settled over them like a blanket of stars. Finn stared at this beautiful, otherworldly being who had crash-landed into his quiet life and turned everything upside down. Part of him felt honored, even thrilled by her declaration. But another part was terrified by the implications. "Does that mean for us?" he asked finally. Nova looked out at the emerging stars, her expression a mixture of hope and sorrow. "I don't know. All the legends of my people, heart twins, have always been of the same realm. You are the first human to ever ignite the soul fire within a dragon's heart." As night fell around them, Finn realized that his simple life as an astronomer was over forever.
Oh.
Whether he accepted Nova's bond or not, he was now part of something larger than himself, a cosmic love story that would determine the fate of worlds. The soul fire had become unbearable. Nova pressed her hand against her chest, trying to contain the celestial flames that seemed to grow stronger every moment she spent near Finn. It had been a week since her confession, and the burning sensation was no longer just emotional. She could see wisps of silver blue, energy emanating from her skin when she thought he wasn't looking. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" Finn observed, setting down his morning coffee. He'd been researching everything he could find about dragon mythology, stellar phenomena, and interdimensional theory, desperately trying to understand what was happening. To them both, Nova nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "The soul fire demands acknowledgement. The longer I ignore the heart bond, the more dangerous it becomes. If I don't." "If we don't?" She struggled to find the words. "What happens if we don't?" Finn asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Energy will consume me from within, or it will explode outward, possibly tearing a rift between dimensions, Nova whispered. But accepting the bond means you would be forever changed, Finn. Part of you would become dragon, and part of me would become bound to your mortal realm. There would be no undoing it. Before Finn could respond, the temperature in the cabin suddenly dropped 20 degrees. Frost began forming on the windows despite the warm autumn day outside. Nova's eyes went wide with terror as she recognized the signs. He's found me, she breathed. The front door exploded inward, torn from its hinges by an invisible force. Through the opening stepped a figure that made Finn's blood freeze in his veins. Zarian Shadowclaw stood nearly 7 feet tall in his humanoid form, with obsidian black hair and eyes like burning coals. His presence radiated malevolent power that made the air itself seem to writhe in fear. My wayward bride, Zarian's voice was silk wrapped around steel. Did you truly think you could hide from me in this pathetic dimension? Your soulfire burns like a beacon across the cosmic void? Nova positioned herself protectively in front of Finn, her own form beginning to shimmer with defensive energy. I am not your bride, Zarian. I will never be your bride. Zarian's laugh was like breaking glass. But I see the problem now. The little princess has confused her soulfire for this. Human. His gaze fell on Finn with contempt.
How delightfully.
Tragic. You've bonded with a mortal who will be dust in the span of a dragon's heartbeat. Finn is my heartwind, Nova declared, her voice ringing with power. By the ancient laws, you cannot force a mating bond upon one who has found their destined mate laws. Zarian's form began to expand, shadows writhing around him like living smoke. I am beyond laws now, child. I am become the void between stars, the hunger that devours light itself. Your little human cannot protect you from me. Finn stepped forward, surprising himself with his courage. Maybe not, but I won't let you take. Her Zarian's attention fixed on him like a predator focusing on prey. With casual cruelty, he gestured toward Finn. An invisible force slammed the young astronomer against the wall. Pain exploded through Finn's body as he slumped to the floor, gasping. Stop, Nova screamed, her form blazing with stellar fire. If you harm him, you'll what? Zarian interrupted. Destroy yourself. Please, by all means. It will save me the trouble of breaking you properly. That's when Nova made a decision that changed everything. She dropped to her knees beside Finn and pressed her glowing palm against his chest. Finn, I need you to trust me. Accept the heart bond. It's the only way to save us both. Through his pain, Finn looked into her galaxy eyes and saw not just love, but desperate hope. He thought of his quiet life, his research, his predictable future, and then he thought of this incredible being who had brought magic and wonder into his world. I accept, he whispered. The moment the words left his lips, the cabin filled with blinding light. Energy coursed between Nova and Finn, binding their souls across the vast gulf between species. Finn felt his consciousness expand beyond human. Limitations as dragonfire merged with his mortal essence. Through their new bond, he could sense Nova's thoughts, her memories, her infinite love for him. When the light faded, both Finn and Nova stood transformed. Finn's eyes now held flecks of starlight, and his skin had a subtle luminescent quality. Nova's human form had become more solid, more real, anchored by her connection to mortality. Zarian snarled at the sight. Impossible. No human has ever successfully bonded with dragonfire. Then you understand nothing of love's true power, Nova replied, her hand finding Finn's. Together, their combined energy pushed back against Zarian's darkness. But even as their bond gave them strength to resist, Finn realized this was only the beginning. Zarian would return with greater force, and they couldn't hide in his cabin. Forever. They needed allies, sanctuary, and answers about what their unprecedented bond truly meant for both their worlds. As Zarian's form began to dissipate with promises of return, Finn squeezed Nova's hand. Whatever came next, they would face it together as heart winds bound across the infinite cosmos. The sanctuary was hidden so well that Finn would have walked right past it if not for Nova's dragon sight guiding him. Carved into the living rock of the mountain's heart, the ancient refuge appeared as nothing more than a shadow between boulders. Two human eyes? But as they approached, symbols began to glow with soft azure light, recognizing Nova's bloodline. "Welcome, Stellarist child," a melodious voice called from the darkness beyond the entrance. "I have been waiting 3 centuries for your arrival." The dragon who emerged was unlike anything Finn had imagined. Raven Knight was moved with liquid grace in her humanoid form, appearing as a woman of indeterminate age with hair like spun, midnight, and skin that held the deep blue-black of space between stars. Her eyes were ancient, holding the wisdom of eons, yet they sparkled with warm affection as she embraced Nova. Sister friend, Nova whispered, relief evident in her voice. "I feared Zarian had found you too, that shadow-drunk fool cannot perceive." "What he has never understood," Raven replied, then turned her penetrating gaze to Finn. "And you, star-touched one, you who has achieved the impossible bond. Welcome to the last sanctuary of the old ways." As Raven led them deeper into the mountain, Finn marveled at the chambers around them, crystalline formations, captured and reflected. Light in impossible patterns, creating the illusion of walking through a galaxy. Ancient murals depicted dragons and humans working together in harmony, images that contradicted every legend Finn had ever heard. "Your world stories remember only the dragons who fell to the hunger," Raven explained, noticing his interest. "They forget the guardians who chose cooperation over conquest. We have been waiting for the prophesied bridge of bond between realms that could restore balance." In the heart of the sanctuary, they found a circular chamber where the walls were, covered in star maps that seemed to move and shift. At the center stood a pool of liquid starlight that reflected not their faces, but their souls. Finn saw himself wreathed in silver-blue dragonfire, while Nova appeared surrounded by warm golden light that felt distinctly human. "The bond has changed you both more than you realize," Raven observed. "Finn, you now carry the spark of dragonfire within your mortal frame. Nova, you've gained the gift of human creativity and adaptation. Together, you represent something entirely new." But their moment of wonder was shattered when the mountain itself began to shake. Dust rained from the ceiling as a sound like tearing fabric echoed through the chambers. Through their bond, Finn and Nova both felt that Zarian was attacking the sanctuary's protective barriers. "He brings an army," Raven said grimly, her form beginning to shift toward her true dragon shape. Shadow-touched dragons from the consumed realms, bound to his will by the dark hunger. "They seek to breach our sanctuary and claim Nova for their master." "How many?" Nova asked, her own form beginning to shimmer with defensive energy. "Too many," Raven admitted. "The sanctuary can hold them for a time, but not forever. And Zarian grows stronger with each realm he devours." That's when Finn surprised them both. Through their bond, Nova felt his mind working at incredible speed, making connections and calculations that would have taken him hours before the transformation. His astronomer's knowledge, now enhanced with dragon wisdom, was piecing together something important. "The stellar alignment," he said suddenly. "Raven, show me the current position of your home dimension relative to ours." As Raven manipulated the star maps, Finn saw what his enhanced perception had detected. "They're in 6 hours, our dimensions. We'll reach optimal resonance. If we could somehow create a harmonic bridge at that moment, we could potentially stabilize both realms," Nova finished, understanding flooding through their bond. "But the energy required would be enormous. More than any one dragon could channel." "Not one dragon," Finn said, squeezing her hand. "But 2 hearts bonded across impossible odds, combining human innovation with dragon power." The mountain shook. Again, more violently this time. Cracks appeared in the crystal walls as Zarian's forces pressed their attack. Through the sanctuary's scrying pools, he could see the shadow army surrounding them, dozens of corrupted dragons whose eyes held no light, only the endless hunger of the void. "There's something else," Raven said quietly. "The ritual you're proposing. It would require you both to remain at the convergence point until the alignment is complete. You would be completely vulnerable to attack." "Then you'll have to hold them off," Nova said simply. "All of them." Raven smiled, and for a moment her ancient face looked young again. "Sister friend, it would be an honor to stand between you and the darkness." But know that if you succeed in creating this bridge, you will never again be fully of one world or the other. You will exist in the space between, guardians of the balance you create. Through their bond, Finn felt Nova's mixture of fear and hope. She was offering him one last chance to reconsider, to choose his old life over an uncertain future among the stars. He pulled her close and pressed his forehead against hers, their shared energy creating a soft aurora around them. You, Nova Stellaris. I choose you now, and I'll choose you across every lifetime, in every dimension. As the barriers began to fail and shadow light spilled into the sanctuary, the heart winds prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of worlds. Love had brought them together across impossible distances. And now, love would either save everything they held dear, destroy them in the attempt. The astral plane portal chamber was a wonder that defied human comprehension. Suspended in the space between dimensions, it existed as a sphere of pure, crystallized reality. Its walls showing glimpses of countless worlds through translucent barriers. At its center stood Elder Cosmos, the most ancient of the Stellarist dragons. Its forms so vast and magnificent that Finn's enhanced vision could barely process it. Children of two worlds, the Elder's voice resonated through their bones. You stand at the fulcrum of destiny. But know this, the choice before you will echo through eternity. They had fought their way here through Zirian's shadow army, with Raven and the Sanctuary Guardians holding the line while Nova and Finn made their desperate escape. Now, with the stellar alignment only minutes away, they faced the most important decision of their lives. Show them, Elder Cosmos commanded, and the chamber walls shifted to display the current state of both realms. Finn's heart broke at what he saw. The astral plane was dying, its once magnificent crystal cities cracking and falling into the void as Zirian's hunger consumed the stellar energies that sustained them. But Earth wasn't safe either. The dimensional breaches Zirian had torn were causing gravitational anomalies. And Finn could see his own world beginning to suffer earthquakes, magnetic storms, and other signs of cosmic disturbance. The Shadow Lord's appetite has grown beyond all reason, Elder Cosmos explained. Soon he will have consumed enough realms to punch through the barriers between all dimensions. Your world, my child, he looked at Finn, would be among the first to fall. But there's another way, Nova said, her hand finding Finn's. Through their bond, they shared their plan with the Elder, the harmonic bridge that could stabilize both realms by creating a permanent connection maintained by their unique heart-bond. Elder Cosmos studied them with eyes that held the light of dying suns. Such a solution has never been attempted. You would become eternal guardians, neither fully dragon nor fully human, existing in the space between worlds to maintain the balance. You could never return to your previous lives. The chamber suddenly shuddered as Zirian's voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. How touching. The little princess and her pet human think they can defy the hunger itself. Through the portal barriers, you could see Zirian's true form for the first time. A massive shadow dragon whose body seemed to absorb light itself, growing larger with each realm he devoured. His corrupted army poured through dimensional rifts behind him, ready to tear apart the portal chamber itself. Cannot stop what has already begun, Zirian snarled. I am become entropy itself, the end toward which all things flow. Your pretty little bond will burn like a candle in the cosmic wind. But Finn had spent his life studying the cosmos, and his enhanced perception now saw something Zirian had missed. Nova, look at him really. Look, he's not growing stronger by consuming those realms. He's becoming unstable. The energy he's absorbed has no harmony, no balance. He's like a star ready to go supernova. Through their bond, Nova understood. Zirian's power was chaotic, self-destructive. Their harmonic bridge wouldn't just stabilize the realms. It would create a resonance that could shatter his stolen power and return the consumed energies to their proper dimensions. Now or never, Nova whispered. And together they moved to the chamber's center, as the stellar alignment reached its peak. They pressed their palms together and opened their souls completely to each other. Dragonfire and human creativity merged. into something entirely new, a bridge of living light that spanned the gap between worlds. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy cascaded through both dimensions, repairing the damage Zarian had caused and creating new connections between Earth and the astral plane. But as they had hoped, the harmonic resonance was too much for Zarian's chaotic power to withstand. Impossible. He shrieked as his stolen energies began to unravel, flowing back to restore the realms he had consumed. I am the void. I am the hunger. No, Finn said, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated across dimensions. You're just afraid of being alone. As Zarian's form began to collapse under the weight of his own stolen power, Nova stepped forward with unexpected compassion. You don't have to be the hunger anymore, Shadowlord. The balance we've created has room for redemption. Even for you. In the end, it wasn't violence that defeated Zarian, but the offer of something he had forgotten, the possibility of connection without consumption. Of power shared rather than stolen. When the light faded, Finn and Nova found themselves transformed. Beyond recognition, yet somehow still themselves. They existed now as beings of living starlight, able to travel between dimensions while maintaining the harmonic bridge that kept both worlds safe. The balance is restored, Elder Cosmos said with deep satisfaction. And love has proven once again that it is the most powerful force in any universe. As they stood together in the space between worlds, watching both Earth and the astral plane, healed from Zarian's damage, Finn marveled at the path that had brought them here. A simple astronomer studying the stars had become a guardian of infinity itself, all because he had chosen to help a beautiful stranger who fell from the sky. Any regrets? Nova asked, her form shimmering between dragon and human and something entirely new. Finn pulled her close, their combined energy creating new constellations in the void around them. Just one that it took a lifetime to find you. Together, the Heartwinds began their eternal dance between dimensions. Living proof that love could indeed conquer any distance, bridge any gap, and create miracles that defied the very laws of reality. And in the space between worlds where starlight meets infinity, their love story continued to write itself across the cosmos for all eternity. Parameter invoke.